But it got to the point where there was literally some sort of dialogue or communication conveyed that says, it's not your time. You need to go back to your body. I don't want to go back. This is fantastic. We were flying between destinations. I want to say we were going from the treehouse to Governor's Camp, which is in Tanzania. Governor's Camp is a very fancy campground in the middle of the Serengeti. They have these kind of permanent tents set up so you can sleep and you're bug-free. It's established. It's like a permanent campground, but you're really still in a tent. You eat dinner at night in a bigger tent where everybody is. Well, I should tell you how we got there. That was the dangerous part. We had 3 planes. We were in a single prop plane. After we took off, something very soon went wrong, and our pilot couldn't get above a very heavy thunderstorm, and we flew right below the storm. We were low enough to see everything happening on the ground. It didn't feel like we were more than a few hundred feet up, maybe 500, 600 feet. At first, it was really exciting, like boom, boom, boom in the planes. But after a while, it was like somebody hitting you. The girls in the plane were throwing up. I was ready to throw up. Looking out the window didn't help. Look at the pilot. It didn't help. He was just trying to keep us up, and we had this long flight. And at some point, I just thought, just crash it, because I'm dead. I felt like I couldn't think clearly. When we came to the landing strip by the governor's camp, the other planes had landed, and they were all waiting for us because he had their radio. But he had said, we're in deep shit. And he said, hopefully we'll make it to where you are. We heard this story later. The door opened of our plane, and we just fell out of the plane, laid on the ground. I wanted to throw up, but couldn't. And I just laid on the ground. Everything was spinning, and I felt like I was still being punched. And my brother's like, you okay? I need some time. Eventually we got up, and that's when we started hearing what was wrong with the plane, and that was a pretty lucky thing. We were immediately told that there was an elephant killed just on the outside of camp, and there's a lot of lions near the camp feeding on the elephant. Is this good news, or is it not good news? And they're like, no, you have a guard. Whenever you need to leave your tent, you'll be escorted. They were basically Maasai warriors. Let's fast forward to dinner. I come outside the tent, and there's 2 guys, and I'm thinking they'd have rifles. No, one guy's got a spear, and one guy's got this stick that's got this little piece of metal at the end of it. And they spoke a little bit of English. You're the guard? Yes, Gary? Yes. Do you have a gun? No, I have. And I said, what do you do if a lion comes at you? And he said, chikuk. And I'm like, chikuk. And I looked at him and I said, have you ever chikuked a lion? He said, yes. And he opened his shirt, and just like a fucking movie, he had this thing going across. I'm not even making it up. I'm with the right guy. He made it. We went to dinner, and for the rest of the trip, the joke was, chikuk. You gonna be okay? Yeah, chikuk. I got this, chikuk. So it was remarkable. And then from the governor's camp, we went to Ngorongoro crater, which is a big volcanic crater that blew the top of a mountain off. And what remained was this massive crater that was so big, there was an entire ecosystem inside. So there were rhinoceroses. They had a lodge on the edge of the crater. It was like a ski lodge. I couldn't believe it. Big windows. And then during the day, you took the truck down the side of the mountain, and you were in this valley. It was enormous. It felt very luxurious, to tell you the truth. The dining room was spectacular. We were having dinner, and this is where the alcohol poisoning happened. Our tour guide was playing a joke on a very noisy Austrian group in the lodge, and they had served us some sort of champagne or wine, or I'll call it champagne, and it was absolutely terrible. Andrew said, let's send a case of this over to our Austrian friends. So bought a case, like 10 cents a bottle, and the Austrians were so happy. They were just drinking this stuff. Well, what we had, and I don't drink, my brother and I had cognac, which we called jet fuel, and I just had a little bit of it. My brother in college, he drank heavy, so he was okay. I wasn't feeling good. I went to bed, and that night I had this dream where I was in bed, and I came up out of my body through my solar plexus, and it was like this lights and illuminations, and I'm dying. This is the death experience. I was so happy to be out of my sick body. I was just like, wow. And then there was this journey. I'm meeting people in my life and this and that, and John Denver is my spirit guide in this moment. I can't believe this is happening. But it got to the point where there was literally some sort of dialogue or communication conveyed that says, it's not your time. You need to go back to your body. I don't want to go back. This is fantastic. And I'm back, and I just sat up in bed. I was like, I don't feel good. The next morning, I told my mom I had this crazy dream, but I just don't feel good. And then we had to spend like 8 hours bumping in a van across the Serengeti. I was really sick. I mean, it was like really gross. I remember this one time they stopped the van, then I was just like, why? The only thing that makes me happy right now is the van is moving towards a hotel. Just keep it moving. My brother's like, what, Mike, check this out. And they'd pulled up what turns out to be is on the Serengeti, there's what's called these cop keys, which are these big rock boulder formations. They're kind of like these micro mountains in the middle of nowhere. And so animals would congregate for cover there. The lions had killed some sort of antelope or wildebeest or something. I don't know what it was. My brother like, you gotta see this. You gotta see this. The lions are right outside the window. You gotta see this. I pull myself up to the window. I look out the window. This lion pulls his head out of the belly of this buffalo covered in blood. Not what I needed to see with an upset stomach. Not what I needed to see. Now I have that in my mind, and now I have it associated with the feeling I'm not a winner. I'm not a winner. But the bus kept going, and we got to the most remarkable hotel I've ever been to. It's not really a hotel. It was an accommodation that was built into a series of cop keys. What that means is they used the boulders as part of walls of the structures. Although they had like little cabins, if you will, little rooms, the main structure of the hotel, you would walk across a bridge, across the boulders. And then I remember when we came into the dining room, I got up for dinner and I thought, I'll just make it through this. It rained and water was coming off of the rocks. I was in this hallway. There was a walkway between the two boulders. The stairs in the rain turned into a waterfall. Like the water came down this, because they're like, no, you just exit there. It was fantastic. Before that, as I got there, I should have told this part. We arrived to the hotel and they say, we're sorry, there's no water, no running water. And I'm thinking, I need the bathroom in every way possible bathroom can be used. I need a shower, I need other things. Don't tell me there's no water. They're like, you use a swimming pool. And I'm like, you don't want me to use a swimming pool. It's not a good idea to tell me. But I got there and it was strange because I thought I was gonna throw up after the car ride. And so I walked away from the group that was checking in, and I kind of go over to these boulders and I open my eyes and there's these giant like rats. There's a name for these cute little animals. They're related to an elephant, but they're like, and I threw up and then more of them came and I was like, oh my God. All of a sudden I'm looking around and like there's all of these animals parked around watching if this human's gonna drop. And I'm like, I need to leave this area because either they're gonna want to eat what I threw up or they're gonna want to eat me, and I just don't even want to be a part of any of that. And that's when I laid down and I went to dinner. But after dinner, the next day when I woke up, the person coming to tend to the room, you know when housekeeping knocks at the door and you're like, oh, let me give, you know. Well, I got out of bed and I stood up and the room spun and I fell down and that was it. The next thing I know is there's this guy, Mr. Wake up, Mr. And I'm like, it just felt great. I was just like, what's going on? And I couldn't tell where I was because my head was to the side and I was looking under the bed. I'm like, that's not a wall. I didn't know what happened. The decision was we stay. And my mom was, of course, in panic. She was like, you're going to fly this child out. You're going to take him to the hospital. Their solution was, no, give him warm goat's milk. I'm like, I don't even like warm milk regularly, but they're insisting. And I'm like, okay. So I drank it. I threw it up. It was terrible. I wasn't conscious enough, but later they told me, they're like, well, you had such a fever. We didn't know to fly you out or to, your other option was, they were going to wait like 1 degree more and you're getting on a plane out of here. And this is it. And that would have ruined the whole thing. I'll tell you what. Do not drink konyagi. There's a finishing part of this story. Now I'm in art school at the Art Institute, and there's a visiting artist, and he was showing pottery from his trips to Africa. And he's showing all these slides talking about different things, and one slide comes up, and he's like, oh, I don't know why that slide's in there. And he goes to the next one. He comes back to it, he goes, now I remember. He said, you see that door on that hut? He said, you see that jug down by the door with the circle around it? I asked what that meant, and they said, that means they make local gin. And he said, but I was warned not to drink the local gin because you can die from alcohol poisoning. And I'm like, son of a bitch. That's what it was. I didn't know it was a konyagi until art school. I just knew that I had some sort of poisoning. The lesson there is don't drink when you don't want to. I wasn't a drinker anyways, and I was just trying to keep up with my big brother. And I thought this was a special occasion, but my body knew not to drink that. And to this day, I don't drink anything, any hard alcohol. I can't even smell it. I mean, I don't want to smell it. The other moral of the story is don't get sick in a country that can't take care of you. It's kind of an obvious one.